On June 14, 1940, German troops entered Paris without firing a single shot. The French capital, declared an open city a few days earlier, falls without a fight into the hands of the Wehrmacht. This decision is still debated today. Was it cowardice or the only reasonable choice? Why wasn't Paris defended when the island fought to the last bullet just 2 weeks earlier? And above all, would a defense of Paris have been militarily possible? That's what I propose to discuss with you today. In order to fully understand why Paris was not defended, we need to grasp the military situation France was facing at the beginning of June 1940. When General Maxime Weygand took over as commander-in-chief on May 19th, succeeding General Gamelin, the situation was simply catastrophic. The Allied armies were trapped in the north, while the German panzer divisions had reached the coast. Faced with this disaster, Weygand organized, with what was left of the French army, the country's final line of defense. The system stretched from Davos to Montmédy, over about 360 kilometers. This system relied on a remarkable tactical innovation, the hedgehogs. These infantry strongpoints, arranged in a checkerboard pattern and supported by artillery, were designed to hold their ground independently. Instead of forming a continuous line and trying to plug the gaps, which had proven ineffective, faced with German mobility, Weygand relied on a defense in depth, making intelligent use of the tenacity of the French infantry as well as the quality of their artillery. Tenacity to counter the German war of movement. This tactic, because of its effectiveness, would later be adopted by the Americans and then by NATO. When the German army went on the offensive, the fighting was incredibly violent. On average, 2,000 French soldiers lost their lives each day, which is a much higher daily average than at Verdun. On the German side, the losses were also terrible. While the Wehrmacht lost 21,000 men during the month of May, it lost 28,000 in June, mainly during its battles. But Weygand's plan called for the creation of reserves, especially armored ones, by June 15, which would have made it possible to counterattack. However, on June 11, just 4 days before the objective, and with no British reinforcements, the barrier cracks and then bursts. Unable to replace the massive human and material losses caused by these battles, the French army is strategically defeated on its northeastern front. The German divisions, however, have replenished their ranks and kept up the pressure. In this dramatic context, the question of Paris emerges. Before we continue, a quick note about this documentary's partner, World of Warships. Admit it, for a World War II documentary, this partnership fits perfectly, because World of Warships features more than 850 warships recreated from historical plans and documents of the time. And it's a bit like playing in a naval museum, taking command of a model ship you might find there. And this month, the game is launching a fantastic collaboration at the request of the player community. A collaboration that will speak to you since it's with the excellent band Sabaton, who are teaming up with World of Warships. If you don't know them yet, Sabaton is a Swedish metal band whose entire discography revolves around military history. We actually talked about them right here regarding the Pontifical Swiss Guards. This collaboration comes to life through various exclusive editions, including the Legend of Sabaton event, which lets you learn more about the band, a crowned smoke and flame skin for the Yamato, which is the largest battleship ever built, and a commander, Joachim Broden, who is none other than the lead singer of Sabaton himself, and now has his own voice lines. And if you haven't heard the song Yamato yet, which Sabaton composed for the occasion, the music video is in the description, and honestly, it's awesome. The game is free and available on PC, console, and mobile. Use the link in the description for a bonus code to start your Sabaton collection when you first log in. Whether you're a new player or an experienced one, go check it out. Then let's get moving to defend Paris. Did you know Paris was once protected by a system of fortifications? That's right, it's a little-known system, the Chauvinaux line. As early as 1931, General Maurice Gamelin had ordered a study for a line of defense to protect Paris from a sudden attack. The idea was simple: to create an arc of fortifications to defend the capital from an attack coming from the north. This was to be based on the natural waterways, namely the Oise, the Nonette, and the Ourcq Canal. However, as usual, Gamelin conceived this plan intellectually, but did not actively seek to see it actually built. In fact, this system only began to take shape late after war had been declared. That was from September 1939, when its construction was entrusted to General Chauvinaux. For 9 months, activity was intense. Along a 130-kilometer line stretching from Conflans-Sainte-Honorine to La Ferté-sous-Jouarre, 262 bunkers of varying calibers were built, as well as between 14 and 23 kilometer. According to sources, anti-tank ditches were built, but this line had a major problem: it was too weak. So, you shouldn't imagine a system similar to the Maginot Line, nor a continuous line of defense. In fact, 262 bunkers for 130 kilometers means roughly 2 bunkers per kilometer. While the anti-tank ditches are positioned strategically, they only cover a limited part of the system. This one, built in a line, also doesn't allow for defense in depth, which is the only effective tactic against German mobile warfare. In short, the system can locally serve as a strong point and act as a temporary shield for the infantry. But that's about all it does. When the Wagen line is breached, the French army gradually loses its cohesion, starting first on its left flank. The infantry divisions held as long as possible, but most lost 2/3 to 3/4 of their strength in combat. While others are simply destroyed, the remaining elements of these divisions then try to take up positions behind them, behind the Seine or on the Chauvinaux line, for example. On the western flank of the formation, the whole thing holds up fairly well, despite the catastrophic state of the French divisions positioned there. Troops, exhausted and closely pursued by the Germans, hold their ground there with courage, from June 10 to 12, especially in the Ile Adam sector. However, on the evening of June 12, as the front is once again breached in several places, and these remnants of infantry divisions are threatened with encirclement, Generalissimo Weygand is forced to order a retreat. The last stronghold of Paris has just fallen. The way to the capital of France is open. But then, couldn't Paris have been defended by fighting street by street? Well, believe it or not, this idea isn't absurd, since the French fought a similar battle just a few days earlier. Starting from May 28, 1947 French divisions, made up of French, Moroccan, Algerian, and Tunisian soldiers, representing about 30,000 to 40,000 men, commanded by General Molinier, were surrounded in the island sector. Facing 110,000 Germans and 800 tanks, despite this overwhelming imbalance of power, these men decided to fight to hold back the German forces and allow their comrades to evacuate at Dunkirk. The fighting was incredibly brutal. The French made the best use of the urban landscape, especially using railway embankments, factories, and canals. From these positions, they held out with fierce determination for 4 days, until they completely ran out of ammunition, which happened on May 31 at midnight. Their extraordinary fighting spirit led the German General Weiger to grant them military honors when they surrendered, something that had not happened since the Fort de Vaux in 1916 during the First World War. These heroes of 1940, both Europeans and North African riflemen, marched together on the island. On June 1st, after holding back 7 German divisions which could not intervene either at Dunkirk or on the Somme, thus giving precious time to the Allies. While this example shows that an effective urban defense is possible and can slow down the Germans, why wasn't the same done in Paris? Well, the situation simply isn't the same anymore. While the defenders of the island fight to their last bullet, their comrades retreat in order to continue the war. While the Wagen line is being established, the encircled divisions know full well that their heroism is buying vital time for the French army. Their sacrifice has meaning, both morally and strategically. But when the question of Paris arises, the Weygand line has just been broken, and there is simply nothing left behind. The French army has exhausted its reserves of men and equipment. The fortifications have all either been bypassed, breached, or overrun, and the French army is then in fact defeated. It is no longer able to offer a coherent defense. However, defensive preparations were indeed put in place in Paris on May 30, 1940. The military command thus lists 150 barriers blocking access to the city, while many monuments are protected by sandbags. Artillery positions and machine gun nests are strategically positioned to protect the city. On June 6, the Champs-Élysées, Place de la Concorde, and the Esplanade des Invalides are blocked by vehicles and planks arranged in zigzags to prevent enemy planes from landing. The worsening situation then leads the military authorities to have trees cut down throughout the area to slow down any possible enemy advance. Meanwhile, on June 8, the Paris army is formed, bringing together the few troops available in the area. But these preparations are rendered useless by the military situation. Rommel's tanks reach the Seine on June 9, while 2 days later, the Germans break through. The French defenses to the east, Paris is on the verge of being encircled despite the French resistance on the Chauvinaux line that we mentioned a little earlier. In this context, Supreme Commander Weygand must decide on the defense of Paris. On June 11, 1940, General Weygand decided the fate of Paris. He declared the capital of France an open city, meaning it would be offered to the enemy without a fight. In practice, however, there is some confusion. As historian Pierre Vallot points out, it was only on June 12 at noon that the generals in charge of the defense of Paris received a phone call from Weygand, officially telling them that due to the strategic situation, Paris must be surrendered without a fight in order to avoid its destruction. The commander-in-chief then organized the general retreat of the French army with the competent help of General Georges, with the aim of preserving as much as possible of what remained. Contrary to post-war accusations, Weygand's decisions were not driven by defeatism or hidden political motives. But why didn't they defend the capital where most French industry was located? The explanation is actually simple. By now, you likely see that defending Paris was militarily pointless. The remaining troops were exhausted, disorganized, and too few. The French army was simply no longer physically able to form a coherent front, while the Germans then had overwhelming superiority at every level. Even a fierce and organized defense of Paris, as was the case in Lille, no longer had any chance of contributing positively at the end of the battle. At best, it would only delay the inevitable by a few days, at the cost of massive destruction and heavy human losses, including civilians. Also note that this is not about deciding the diplomatic and political outcome of the war, but simply acknowledging a situation. In fact, no one within the French leadership really opposes this decision since the situation is so clear. And so, on June 14, 1940, the German army enters Paris without encountering any resistance and takes possession of the capital of France. This decision, which may seem like a lack of willpower at first glance, makes perfect sense when put into context. Whatever one thinks from a symbolic and military standpoint, Weygand's decision is consistent. The example of Lille shows that urban defense only makes sense if it fits into a tactical or strategic context. Seizing an opportunity, the defenders of Lille had a clear objective: to buy time. For their comrades and the entire French army, a defense of Paris on June 11, 1940 would have made no sense at all. However, part of the French government still wanted to continue the war, and to do so from Brittany. If you're interested in this topic, we'll have the chance to come back to it soon. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the association Les Loups de la Moselle, who are the creators of the superb reenactment images that illustrated this documentary. They have restored several fortifications of the Maginot Line, especially the Conflans casemate. It's truly a work of passion, and I've put a link to their page in the description. I also hope that we'll have the chance to visit them soon. But before that, if you think my work deserves it, give a thumbs up to the comment, subscribe, and most importantly, join us in the D-Mystif company, History on Taipei, by clicking the link in the description. Your support is absolutely essential for the proper functioning of the channel. And of course, don't forget the World of Warships link in the description to claim your bonus. Sabaton, with that, let's head to the following documentary.